in sports marketing, how we've gotten to this point, and then hopefully in the Fireside chat, a little bit more about the future of sports marketing. For New Balance, though, it's really been a long journey in sports marketing. And I would say 10 years ago, we made the distinctive decision to get more involved in the world of sport. And the reason is there's multiple reasons behind that. But I would say 10 years ago, New Balance was very much considered to be a global running brand and a global classics brand. And we made the declaration about a decade ago to be the undisputed top 3 global athletic brand in the world, as well as the world's best running brand. So we knew that we had to change our strategy in order to attain that level of prominence in the world of sports. And for us, we're a challenger brand in our industry. And sometimes the goal for us isn't to be the best footwear or apparel brand we can be. It's really to be the ultimate challenger brand. And sports was a huge factor enabling us to get to that point. Sports are inherently social. It's probably the only major appointment viewing televised broadcast left in the world today. It's real time, and obviously people are passionate about sports all over the world. And we truly believe that our sports marketing partners and that our sports marketing ambassadors are the key factors that will enable New Balance to get to that top 3 global athletic positioning. As of right now, 70% of our business is outside of the United States. 10 years ago, 70% of our business was in the US. 50% of our business is in the lifestyle category, and sports really serve as the primary halo effect to culturally connect with consumers across the globe and really provide that hero aspect to our brand that may or that may not have existed 10 years ago. So I will talk a little bit about our differentiated approach later on, but I did want to give insight into our sports marketing portfolio landscape. Since we've been really heavily invested in sports only in the last 7 or 8 years, we do have an evolving portfolio across a multitude of different sports that many of you on the call may not know about. So I think the first step in this process is providing awareness to what we participate in. But for us, we look at sports in a full funnel manner, sports marketing for that matter as well. So the primary goal of sports marketing is obviously awareness, but we view that awareness really as a sense of entitlement, an entitlement to belong in the sport, entitlement to belong in the business, and an entitlement to connect with the consumer. Sports also give us the opportunity to create great differentiated content by leveraging our portfolio and our assets and our partners in ways that other brands might not be able to, in ways that we want to be emotive and project ourselves as a brand. And at the end of the day, we all know that it's about consumer connectivity and creating emotional connections to the consumer. So from a full funnel approach, we use sports marketing as a means for awareness and entitlement, consideration, and ultimately conversion. And as both a sponsor and performance supplier to a variety of different sports, it really gives us a lot of opportunity to play with things in a unique way and really ensure that we're projecting our values as a brand through our partners in the world of sport. When, for all the sports marketers out there, I would say that, when you are making investments in sports, they should directly correlate to your goals as a brand. And sports marketing requires a tremendous amount of focus. It's a passionate field, but it's a field where the focus is all the most important. So like for us, becoming a top 3 global athletic brand, we had to declare which sports we wanted to participate in. We had to declare how we were going to participate in those sports and the philosophy, values, and activation principles around those sports. We foster a culture of calculated risk-taking, incremental improvements, and experimentation. So hopefully you will see that throughout the entirety of the presentation today. And I will walk you through some of our assets throughout our portfolio right now. So as you heard from me earlier, one of our principal goals is to be the world's best running brand. And that really entails having the right investments in the space to gain that credibility, authenticity, and entitlement. We have 2 out of the top 5 marathons in the world in the New York City Marathon, as well as the London Marathon, and the largest women's specific marathon in the world in the Nagoya Women's Marathon. Events are a great way for us to have face-to-face, hand-to-hand interaction with consumers and really create a totally immersive experience and create a dialogue with consumers, with new communities, in order for them to understand our brand values, our product, our mission on a more personal level. Within the athlete space in running, we have about 110 world-class runners that will be participating in Tokyo 2021, which still sounds super weird to say. We expect a lot of these runners to medal, and we're primarily focused in the running space as it pertains to world-class athletes on women's middle distance and women's sprinters. So a lot of these young ladies that you see here will be representing New Balance in Tokyo, ranging from a variety of different countries. New Balance is distributed in over 130 countries. So we do have runners and athletes throughout the globe that represent our values as a brand. In order to be a undisputed top 3 brand, we do have to participate in the world's largest sport. And about 5 or 6 years ago, we made the audacious decision to get involved in global football, with fully recognizing that there are multiple behemoths in the space that have long time been institutionalized and have tremendous amounts of credibility within football. We kicked off our football partnership with Liverpool Football Club, but we also have a wide variety of world-class players. Pictured here is African Player of the Year and Liverpool superstar Sadio Mane. We also have Rose Lavelle, who is at the peak of the women's game. And over the course of the next 2 to 3 weeks, you'll be seeing some new signings from New Balance that are intimate. And if you follow the sport, you probably have seen some chatter on social media about who those individuals are, but we're very excited to be expanding our roster in the very near future. From a club perspective, this really provides us with the right level of awareness and ability to engage with passionate fan bases across the world. The fan bases in world football are rabid communities of individuals who unwaveringly support their clubs. And that's a relationship. These are relationships that we're very proud to be ingrained in. And we really take a bespoke approach when working with our clubs. Every one of these clubs has their own differentiated jersey. We have significant layers within our partnerships that correlate to social media, activations, bespoke marketing campaigns, and working with their academies to develop great product. Within the next few weeks, we will also be announcing some additional world-class clubs that will be joining the New Balance family in the next few weeks, which we're really excited about activating throughout the course of 2021 and beyond. And in basketball, we got into basketball about 2 years ago with the signing of Kawhi Leonard and our intern pictured on the left, Darius Baisley. Basketball was a big decision for us, and basketball really serves as a catalyst for New Balance to get further ingrained within the US marketplace as well as China. Basketball as a category is super important to the brand. However, arguably, I would say basketball has the largest halo effect into lifestyle than any other category in the world. So for us, success in basketball is absolutely categorical, but we don't only look at it vertically. We look at it horizontally. We look at it as the basketball consumer versus the basketball category. We've had a lot of fun activating Kawhi Leonard over the course of the past couple of years, and Darius Bazley and DeJounte Murray pictured on the screen. You guys have also heard, a ton about the NBA today. And I think there is definitely a reason for that. It's because the NBA is a great league and they're great partners to be working with. Just this past year, we began a 5-year partnership with the NBA that is specifically focused on media in the broadcast, social, and digital space, as well as rights to use content, integration into NBA 2K video games, and a wide variety of other opportunities that you guys will see unfold over the course of the next few years. To me, the reason why the NBA is so special is because it is by far the most digitally engaged league in the world. You guys have heard this earlier, but the amount of calculated risk-taking, the level of partnership and accommodation that the NBA provides to their partners, and just their connectivity in the digital space globally, particularly in the US and China, make it a no-brainer for us to get involved with the league and enhance our consumer footprint across the world, particularly in 2 must-win regions for the brand. Cricket is a great way for New Balance to be regionally relevant, particularly within the UK, South Africa, and Australia. It also provides a tremendous amount of awareness in an emerging market like New Balance, like India for New Balance. So within cricket, we have multiple athletes, as well as the English Cricket Board, who just recently won this past Cricket World Cup. Tennis is an exciting one for us, and it has a prime female focus for our brand. And again, tennis is one of those halo categories. So whether it's Danielle Collins pictured on the right, or 16-year-old phenom Coco Gauff in the middle, or Milos Raonic on the left, tennis is one of those sports where we really strive to make 1 + 1 = 3. It's a head-to-toe sport for us. It's a truly global sport, and there's 4 major cultural energy moments in tennis throughout the course of the year. One of New Balance's primary goals as a brand is to be real-time sport and culture with any activation that we do. Tennis gives us the opportunity to have major platforms globally, particularly in the women's space, 4 times per year with some of the best young athletes across the globe. In baseball, although super prominent in North America, Japan, and Korea, it's not as prevalent across the world. However, we do consider it to be an international beacon for New Balance. And baseball actually served as our beta test in sports marketing. Like I mentioned before, we were considered to be a running brand and a classics brand. Baseball was really the first team sport that we went into about 10 years ago, in the hopes of focusing, coming up with a strategic offense that would enable us to penetrate and permeate the world of sports marketing. And today we sit with about 30% of Major League Baseball wearing New Balance spikes. Brand beacons like Francisco Lindor and Ronald Acuna shown here. It was announced yesterday that Shane Bieber, New Balance athlete, was AL Cy Young winner, and then knock on wood, Jose Abreu will be the AL MVP by the end of the week. We also have team partnerships with the Boston Red Sox and the New York Mets, and similar to the NBA, those partnerships are very large part digitally focused, but also include apparel components, out-of-home components, and in-stadium components. And skateboarding, we consider to be one of those sports that truly bridges the gap between sport and culture. About 7 years ago, we made the declaration to get into skateboarding, and today we sit as the 3rd largest skateboarding brand in the world from a footwear revenue perspective, and something that we will continue to invest in the near future. And lastly, from a portfolio perspective, Warrior Sports is a sister brand of New Balance that is a market leader in both hockey and lacrosse. We have a strategy with Warrior whereby our athletes and our investments utilize Warrior hard goods, and the soft goods, meaning footwear and apparel, complete that head-to-toe look for all of our Warrior partners. And then from a global campus standpoint, this is something that we're super excited about. We believe our campus to be a physical manifestation of the brand that we strive to become. We want to be the undisputed top 3 athletic brand in the world. That requires perseverance, it requires guts, it requires risk, it requires innovation. And for us, our campus is reflective of that. We knew that in order to have a world-class sports campus, we needed world-class partners. So the Boston Bruins, as well as the Boston Red Sox, actually practice on our campus. Their facilities are located on New Balance headquarters campus. And we have great sports marketing as well as tenant partnerships with these 2 Boston iconic brands. And then lastly, on our campus, we're in the process of building a 5,000 seat indoor track, which will hold host to things like USA Indoor Track and Field Championships, as well as a wide variety of NCAA and national high school sanctioned meets. So I'm going to go into a little bit about our strategy. And I think the most important thing to recognize here is that sports marketing is really a balance between art and science, right? You have to take both a qualitative and quantitative approach. And our philosophies and principles are really the subjective factors in our core set of values that we religiously abide by. These philosophies and principles really serve as the filter in how we acquire and pitch our partners, but also in how we service them and how we activate them and how we incorporate them into our brand at large. And the central ethos of the New Balance brand, being the ultimate challenger brand that I spoke about earlier, is this notion of fearlessly independence. Going back to the idea of being the ultimate challenger brand, 5 years ago, we knew that we needed to have a more emotional connection to consumers across the world. And that wasn't necessarily about creating a new marketing campaign or creating a new brand strategy. It was revealing our brand truth. It was revealing the soul of the New Balance brand, a 110-year-old brand that's focused on tomorrow. And we knew that notion of being fiercely independent got us through the first 110 years. And it was certainly going to be the primary factor in getting us to the next 110 years. From an internal standpoint, we always talk about being the most boutique and curated sports marketing brand in the world. This involves being the best, not the biggest. We never want to have the most quantity. We want to have the best quality. We want to be smart. We want to be selective. We want to be probably one of the most highest coveted brands for athletes to join. And these athletes certainly represent our fiercely independent mentality, because it takes a special athlete to sign with New Balance, being a challenger brand, being a new brand in the space, and really being a brand that's putting itself out there and trying to take on the larger brands in our industry. Here we have Sydney McLaughlin and Kendall Ellis, 2 young ladies who will be representing USA Track and Fields in the 2021 Tokyo Olympics. And whether you want to say we're trying to be the best, not the biggest, whether you want to say we're trying to be the most fiercely independent brand in the space or the most curated sports marketing brand in the space, it all comes down to a fewer, bigger, better mentality. And if you work within the New Balance building, if you're on my team, I say these words almost like a broken record, because what this really enables us to do, it enables us to focus. It enables us to activate. It enables us to have partners that we have personal relationships with, and can really magnify the values, the importance, and the image of the New Balance brand. And it goes back to that whole idea of partnership versus sponsorship. We don't refer to any of our ambassadors or athletes or teams or leagues as sponsors. We refer to them as partners. And throughout the athlete pitch process, we are very candid and upfront in the sense that we say, if you're looking for a paycheck here, if you're looking for a sponsor, if you're not looking to put a lot of effort into a symbiotic relationship where we can truly make 1 + 1 = 3, we're not the right brand for you. We expect a lot from our partners. However, we promise that we will over invest in return. And at the end of the day, all of our athletes and all of our partners are a reflection of our values as a brand, and they're truly extensions of the brand. Here you have an image of Sadio Mane announcing that he is building a hospital in his native village in Senegal. And it comes down to an athlete's first approach for New Balance. Yes, we have partners that are teams. Yes, that we have partners that are leagues. But for us, the best way to attain that strong level of consumer connectivity is by focusing on athletes in activation, in a co-authored approach to how we are doing business and really elevating their persona across the world. And by co-authored, I mean with all of our athletes, we have a co-authored strategy, we have co-authored content, and we have co-authored product that enable us to be successful with these individuals. This is not the most glorious picture in the world, but here's a picture of Sydney going over her signature apparel collection with New Balance. Again, we require a tremendous amount of time for our athletes. However, in doing so, we strive to over-deliver and put in a tremendous amount of investment in co-activating our respective brands. And to us, it really comes back to world-class service. Whether it's a team or an athlete or a league, we try to do custom, bespoke strategy, product, and content that will truly differentiate us in the marketplace, but really provide value to our partners as to why they are partnering with New Balance and provide a new voice and a new light to them as an individual, to them as a team, or to them as a league. And we always say that, when you join New Balance, you're joining an extended global family. And based on those philosophies and principles and the subjective nature of our sports marketing strategy, this is what it really culminates to, one large global athletic family. And within every single one of our sports marketing contracts, we do have a component within the contracts that all athletes have to give back to the community. That includes time, it includes product, and it includes finance. So in every single one of our contracts, there are communal obligations. Here we have Milos Raonic on the left with Tennis Canada and Curtis Granderson at his own Grandkids Foundation. And I know I'm going a little bit over, but I only have a couple more minutes, and then we can get into the fireside chat. So measurement, data, and discipline. The most important thing here is truly taking an investor's mindset. And if you're in my position at any organization, the people who dislike you the most, and what I like to refer to as the principal's office, is the CFO and our chief legal counsel. So in terms of discipline negotiations, I'd say there's really two major factors here. One, you have to have a walkaway number. You can't be emotionally attached to a negotiation. And the second thing is you have to put into the contract exactly what you want in order to attain your business goals. I'm going to talk a little about how we measure value. We measure value in 4 specific manners. The first one is license revenue. This is a literal ROI. Whether it's a signature shoe, whether it's a apparel collection for an event, or it's a jersey or a kit for a club, how much money are we returning, we're getting on our investment from a pure product and financial standpoint. The second way we track value, which I still can't convince our CFO on this metric, is a traditional media sponsorship value. This could be over broadcast television, or it could be in venue. But really what we're looking at here is impressions and potential engagements using a partner like Nielsen or Kantar to track that level of value. To me, the most important one is digital earned media value. And the two metrics we utilize here Most specifically our MAV, max ad value, and AAV, adjusted ad value. And we track this pretty religiously in social media on a daily basis. And essentially what max ad value and adjusted ad value are how much money you would have had to pay in order to attain that level of visibility, engagement, and communication with consumers. The last and probably the most fun component of the process is the contractual process, and understanding value is everything that's not in the contract. So whether this is having Francisco Lindor and Sadio Mane having a co-created content shoot at Anfield, or just finding new, unique, and creative ways to amplify our respective voices, that's the fun part, but it also provides the most value. And I have about another minute or so in talking about how we activate our athletes. And at the very least, we enact a one-to-one rule where how much we are paying our partners from a sponsorship perspective is the minimum amount we need to invest in activating these partners. And we do use a full funnel based approach, as I alluded to earlier. And I'll give you an example here with Kawhi Leonard. With Kawhi, we activate Kawhi at the very top of the funnel from a brand perspective, where we're not trying to sell any product necessarily. Most notably during the 2019 NBA Finals, we did massive out-of-home takeovers in San Francisco Bay Area, as well as Toronto, coining him as King of the North, as Fun Guy, and just having fun with it. We also have emotive product content. This is probably a little bit lower down the funnel in the consideration realm, where we create emotional storytelling that's specifically driving product purchases. At the grassroots level, collaborative events. Here's a picture of Joe Fresh Goods based out of Chicago, where we had a special collab featured event with Kawhi and Joe around the NBA All-Star Game in 2019 in Chicago, where we were fortunate enough to have Kawhi as the MVP, and all of these great shoes and clothes sell out within minutes. We have integrated product launches, which are a little bit lower down the funnel, and then hero product shots supporting the athlete's signature product, which are at the very bottom end of the funnel. And then lastly, before we get into the chat, we talked a little bit about the notion of calculated risk-taking and creating a culture of discomfort. And in order to do that with our investments, we really have to operationalize our investments to ensure that we're promoting essentially a safe and easy mechanism for all of our associates to take risk. So we divide our budget in a 50-30-20 mindset. 50% is investments and activations that we know are going to work. 30% are calculated risk. 20% are purely experimental. Once it works once in the 20%, it moves to the 30%. Once it works a couple of times in the 30%, it then goes to the 50%. So with a partner like Sadio, Kawhi, Sydney, or Coco, we do have long-term marketing strategies and long-term marketing strategies over the course of multiple years that have our investments broken down in that 50-30-20 operationalized investment structure. That is it for me. I think I'm supposed to stop sharing my screen now. Can Courtney or David let me know? Is that the plan? Say yes.
Chris.
Yes.
Good to see you.
All right. Should I exit and stop sharing my screen? All right.
We have John on. Thank you both for joining. And Chris, thank you for that presentation. I'm a huge fan of the brand myself. I'm actually rocking the New Balance hoodie. It only seemed right. So appreciate both of your time today. I know we have a few minutes extended to our discussion, which is great. So I don't want to waste any more time, and we'll dive right in. A lot of what, Chris, you just covered is some of the roads that you guys have been taking in the past 10 years to really enter the sports marketing space in an impactful way. I'd say, and I know we talked about it over the past 5, some of the moves and what you guys have spoken about in fearlessly independent and being a challenger brand and wanting to be in the top 3. John, I'd love to kind of hear your perspective on what were some of those key marketing initiatives that New Balance did that have gotten the brand to where they are today in the sports world.
Thanks, Courtney. Chris touched on it, but to understand where we are now, you have to look at our history, and we have a really unique sports marketing history. We were one of the first brands to sponsor runners. We were the first brand to do $1 million endorsement deal in basketball. And then we went 15 years where we actually promoted that we were endorsed by no one. And Chris mentioned 10 years ago when Mr. Davis said that if we're going to be a true global athletic brand, we had to go back to our roots. And the athletes and sports marketing was going to be the vehicle to take us to the next phase of growth. But we would jump into a space where Nike, Adi, and Puma and others were entrenched. And so in typical New Balance fashion, we had to do it differently. And we looked at it as we're not going to sign athletes or events. We're going to approach it by we're going to fix problems. And so if our problem in running is that we were considered old and male and unathletic, every athlete we signed had to be young and female and fast. And Chris touched on baseball. And if our problem was that we didn't have a lot of performance reach in the US, then baseball came our vehicle to really drive performance credibility, widespread performance credibility. And globally, we had no performance reach, and then global football became our vehicle to reach out to a global audience. But what's really accelerated, that gave us a great foundation, and we were very strategic in our approach. But what we took from that then was the next phase, and under Chris's leadership, we've been hyper aggressive. As he said, we've take calculated risks. We've really prioritized our strategy on what categories we're in, what type of events we're in, what type of athletes we go after. That allow us to play at the intersection of sport and culture. And the success, we think we've been in sports marketing for 10 years now. It's been incredible, from Liverpool winning the Champions League and the EPL to Kawhi leading Toronto to the NBA title, from Coco being the biggest story at both, US Open and Wimbledon.
Absolutely.
To cricket, to across all sports. We just had some incredible success, and we're looking forward to the next phase of what success is going to look like going forward.
Absolutely. And I know Chris mentioned some of the imminent announcements that are going to be coming. So I know a lot of us on the call, and myself included, are excited to learn what those are as it pertains to athletes. On the collaborations front, I know Chris covered briefly some of what New Balance has done. I actually live in Flatiron, right down the block from the New Balance store. And one of the more recent collaborations with Salehi Bembury, the award-winning Versace footwear designer, the block was out to my apartment building, but would love to kind of learn a little bit more about these collaborations and how they come to life. I think what Chris and John, you both have said about the intersection of sports and culture and elevating athlete personas. You've obviously done that in some of the collaborations, but even in the lifestyle space as well. Can you kind of elaborate just the life cycle of what those collaborations and how they work on your side?
Yeah, sure. So, the strategy and the implementation of the strategy is not too dissimilar from our sports marketing ethos, right? We have to take a fiercely independent approach. We have to ensure that our collaborative partners are a reflection of our values as a brand, and real-time sport and culture. So one of the things that I'm most proud of with our collaborative efforts is actually embracing the entrepreneurial spirit. So we have a principle internally whereby we are often the first footwear brand to award brands and designers their first ever collaboration in the footwear space. So you can say that's Salehi, you can say that's Emily Andor, you can say that's Joe Fresh Goods, or you can say that's Figs, an apparel company who has totally disrupted the medical wear space. It goes back to having our finger on the pulse of culture. It goes back to having that intersection of authenticity with the brands, but also that co-authored approach where we're going to mutually invest in each other in a way that may seem like an overinvestment at first, but it really equals a 1 + 1 = 3 calculation that permeates globally.
Totally. And I think even just elevating and the entrepreneurial spirit, obviously the Kawhi Leonard signing was huge for the brand. The same way New Balance has been a challenger brand, Kawhi is probably one of the biggest challenger players in the NBA and has certainly proven himself over the past few years. John, can you kind of speak to someone who is, Kawhi's notoriously not the most vocal. He doesn't have social media accounts, but Chris touched on some of what you've done, but would love to kind of hear like how you're elevating his persona, some of the collabs you've done most recently, even with the Jolly Rancher and his favorite Halloween candy. But can you kind of speak on that partnership with Kawhi specifically?
Yeah, I think a lot of people questioned us when we partnered with Kawhi. We asked if it was marketable, he's not on social media. But when we sit down with any athletes, as Chris has laid out, we talk about three things. We talk about independence, community, we talk about partnerships. And as a brand like us, they're a private family-run brand, being different and being not beholden to others and carving our own path is really important, and that's Kawhi Leonard. And so it was a perfect fit for us. And as we've looked at it and started working together, he might not be on social media, but he over-indexes in everything else we do. And I think what the team has done really well is understand who he is, and what he stands for, and then build plans around him that's authentic. It's authentic to Kawhi. It's authentic to New Balance, and it's resonated. And he's very engaged in everything. He's been a true partner in everything he does. And I think having, as Chris said, that co-authored plan, working with a true partner, and that's why from footwear to marketing, everything is seamless and it's resonated with the consumer.
Yeah, Courtney, if I could add to that,
yeah, please
echo what John said. Kawhi's been an invested and great partner, but it also goes back to that fewer, bigger, better approach and activation principles that we put in place, because Kawhi just didn't show up 2 years ago, right? He had won NBA finals. He already was an NBA final MVP. He was all NBA. And that mutual desire to tell authentic stories and bring it to life in a manner that represented calculated risk is what created the cultural phenomenon behind it. Kawhi already existed, New Balance already existed, but there was a common point of authenticity that enabled those stories to be relevant.
Totally. And I think that kind of segues into our next question, which is, this year, New Balance's messaging of We Got Now, seeing some of the spots across your roster of athletes, but especially with, Coco Gauff, Sydney McLaughlin, and Chris, you mentioned it, the idea of elevating personas at Minute Media, the Players Tribune, that's ultimately our goal at the end of the day. And I think, the athletes in your portfolio or your partnerships, I should say, are using their voice to make positive changes on the world. And Chris, I know you touched on some of that, but 2020 has been a challenging year, obviously in a year of difference, in hopefully a good way going into the new year. But can you kind of share how will you expand on this messaging or this idea of, elevating what they're doing in their communities into 2021?
Yeah, John, go ahead, John, and I can supplement it.
It's really important for us to talk about the causes, as Chris, that are relevant to our athletes, and to do that through our campaign and We Got Now has been really impactful for our brand, and it's what our athletes want to do, and I think we're going to continue to elevate that story, talk about what is important to them, and come out to 2020, in a stronger way. I think that the roster of athletes we have, Chris said, we're very selective in who we partner with. We want athletes who are independent, who want partnerships, but also understand that they live in a community larger than themselves. And so when we go to Coco and say, you've used your platform to talk about, social injustice and racial injustice, and we want to use that in the campaign, that resonates with them, and we're going to continue to do that going forward.
Yeah, totally agree. And, part of our obligation to our athletes is to use our platform to get their messages out there. So whether that's Coco and her wanting us to magnify her speech that she gave in Del Rey, or, the example that I gave earlier with Sadio building the hospital in Senegal, whether it's reach, whether it's financial resource, whether it's any type of support, that's our obligation to our partners, and that's why they're partners, not sponsors.
Of course. And just on, the topic of this year and some of the challenges that all brands have faced, all companies, all people, obviously, in the sports landscape, we've obviously had to adapt to some unique circumstances. And I know a lot of marketers today have spoken on that, but New Balance coming out and creating masks for frontline workers. Can you kind of touch on some of those strategies, the team's operations, how nimble you've been, how quick and reactive the brand has been to really make a difference this year in the fight in this pandemic that doesn't seem to be going anywhere anytime soon?
So, John, I can take this one. So, I would say that it wasn't necessarily a strategy, right? It was, we saw an issue going on in the country and in the world, and within a week, we stopped making shoes and started making masks. And I think it's a testament to our associates in the operational supply chain, in our manufacturing, that this was like this is people wanting to help in a fiercely independent manner. And frankly, it's something that we felt as though was our civic duty and moral obligation to fulfill. So there wasn't a strategy. It was a decision that we went forward with, and we weren't really sure how to make masks, but we worked with Mass General Hospital, Brigham Women's Hospital, Harvard, MIT, and they were great partners every step along the way. And John, I don't know if you have anything to add to that too.
Yeah, across the board, we say internally, it's the consumer is demanding brands to be active in social justice issues. We say internally, it's not just a business imperative. It's the right thing to do. It's things that at its core to who we are as a brand. And so whether it be champion Coco's voice or building masks, in our manufacturing facilities, these are things that we have to do to drive positive change in the community.
Of course. Well, and I know New Balance was one of the first to come out and make masks, and appreciate all the work that they've been doing in the fight against social injustice and, protecting our frontline workers. My sister being a nurse herself, but just in the terms of this year and sports marketing and looking ahead, right? I think that's the crux of today, is looking into 2021 and the trends of today and how they impact the future. I assume data, and you mentioned it, Chris, play a huge role in the decision-making process on your side. I think for even us at Minute Media, we've had to look at this year in a different light, right? Like, what are the plans that we're making into the new year, and how are they different? Are sports coming back? There's just a lot of unknown, but can you kind of share some of the trends from this year or learnings that you hope stick in 2021? And then also, like, what are your predictions, into the new year, just as it pertains to sports?
Yeah, I'll just jump in about, a trend and the sporting trends is like people are moving more, and if there's anything good coming out of this year, is that people are walking, people are running, people are cycling, and they're looking for content. They're going online, things that we may take for granted, people are trying to find out there. And so whether it's talking to the voice of our athletes, whether it be virtual races and working with our event partners, that's something we have to continue to advance going forward. And Chris, do you want to jump in anything there?
Sure. So I think I would say, like, from a sports marketing, like, business perspective, I think there are probably three things for like predictive things that I would say. One, I hope that partners are as open to doing things differently as they were in 2021. And that could be whether it's a partner that we already have or a partner that we're about to work with, just like opening the book and rewriting the rules on what sports marketing partnerships look like, I think is absolutely vital to avoid stagnation within the industry. I think the second thing is, I do think sports marketing values and media contracts are going to continue to rise, like with Facebook, Google, Amazon, and obviously all the broadcasting networks involved in sports. Like, I think there's going to be more money in sports within the next 3 to 4 years than there ever has been, and we'll continue to see that upward shift. I think the third thing is going to see the winners and losers of esports really play out. I think, a few years ago, esports was like totally the wild, wild west. Now that we're starting to see like a little bit of more governance in there, we're seeing which investments are the most sound, whether that's from an in-game perspective or a distribution perspective like Twitch. I do think we'll see more clarity and governance around esports at large.
And I'll just add one other thing. I think athletes that attach themselves authentically to real causes are going to become all the more valuable for brands. You look at Marcus Rashford and Naomi Osaka. That the way their engagement is grown exponentially. Beyond sports, and that type of athlete is going to become all the more important to us and probably all other brands as well.
Well, really appreciate both of your time. Chris, really enjoyed the presentation. Thank you both. And yeah, look forward to seeing what more collabs are on the horizon and what these announcements are. Really appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Courtney. Thanks, David.
Thank you, guys. This was fantastic. Really appreciate how